It's time for you to stop complaining about the USA and finally make that move to Mexico. Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be walking around El Mercado De Abastos here in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. I know for a lot of you guys that are watching this video right now, life just sucks. And you're probably watching this video and other videos out there because you're looking for a solution. You're looking for a way out. But you see this whole endeavor as something so daunting, so overwhelming that you think to yourself, yeah, this is probably a good idea, something I really want to do, but can I actually do it? The reality is that yes, of course you can do it. Whether or not you want to do it, that's a different story. It's not going to be easy. Of course, it's going to be very difficult. But if you embrace the difficulty, if you embrace it as a new adventure, if you choose to step outside of your comfort zone and you embrace the idea of you only have one life to live, so you better live that life, well, then you'll be totally fine. You're going to love it. You're going to enjoy the whole adventure because, well, that's what it is. It's an adventure. And with that said, you really have to take that whole idea of you being an expat, out of your mind. Because the reality is that, well, you're an immigrant. If you're leaving the USA or Canada or Europe or wherever you're leaving and you're coming to Mexico, well, you are an immigrant. And since you're an immigrant, well, you got to realize that it's not going to be easy. Just like there are many immigrants that move to your country, to your neck of the woods, and you've seen the struggles that immigrants have when they move to the USA. Well, guess what? Well, now you're going to be that immigrant. Now you're the one that's going to come out here and you're going to be struggling. Whether it's with the language or the culture or, and again, a multitude of things, because it's just the reality of it. Whenever you move anywhere, let alone another country, if you choose to embrace it, you'll be totally fine. You're going to be so happy. Because something I like to say all the time to many people that, are always considering, moving out here to Mexico is that, well, instead of struggling doing something you hate back home in the USA, why not struggle with something new, a new way of life, a new adventure, a new experience, a new culture, just a new everything. Again, obviously life is full of struggle, but why suffer while you're doing it? You could literally be enjoying the ride while you're doing it. Now, as you guys are seeing right now, as we're walking around El Mercado de Abastos, this is something that's very typical of life out here in Mexico. It's not something that's just a rare entity like it is in the USA where, again, you have to go to a farmer's market or you got to go to special, markets that are, again, just expensive or you just don't have any access to. Out here in Mexico, these markets and areas like this are very, very common. In the case of El Mercado de Abastos here in Guadalajara, this is more of a market that is for, people that are buying in bulk. Again, if you're a business, whether you're a small little market or a restaurant, or again, it's open to the public. So if you want to come out here, every other day and buy just 2 apples and, a half a kilo of meat, which is around 1 pound, then, you'll be totally fine. You'll be able to come out here and you'll be able to buy just a little bucket of berries, or you can buy a giant bucket of berries. Or again, just, a frying pan or some olive oil or candy or whatever it is you want to do, you can buy out here. This is a market that is totally available to everyone out there. And that's the thing too, out here in Mexico, you're going to start seeing that there's a lot of things that are like this. And even though in Mexico there is a large income disparity, it's just the truth, just like in, most countries around the world these days, the reality is that, most things are accessible to everyone. So it doesn't matter what your income level is, you can access a healthy lifestyle. It's not like in the USA, where if you want to eat healthy or live a healthy lifestyle, it's going to cost a lot of money. Out here, it doesn't cost a lot of money. In fact, it's the complete opposite. The healthier the lifestyle, the more affordable the lifestyle actually is. If you want to actually eat a lot of junk food or you want to just eat out all the time and not eat healthy, that's going to cost you more than if you actually live a very clean and healthy life. Out here in Mexico, the typical Mexican has access to really good healthcare. And again, it doesn't matter what your income level is. Not just healthcare, but the quality of food, the quality of life, and so on and so forth. And so, well, when you come out here, you're going to have access to all of that as well. You'll be able to, again, be able to live a better lifestyle in which you're going to be able to better your mental health. We talked about this not too long ago when I was walking on the beach back in the Yucatan. But the reality is that, out here in Mexico, there's so many factors that contribute to you having better mental health, because you're not going to be as stressed out as you are back home. And back home in the USA, you're constantly stressed out over a million things. I'm not going to list them here because, well, you live there and you know what they are, and everyone has different stressors out there, but there's just way too many in the USA. In fact, it's almost as if they create stress and fear in order to control you. But hey, that's not what we're going to be talking about here. We're just talking about the fact that living out here in Mexico, well, you don't have to deal with any of that stuff at all. Out here in Mexico, most people just live their lives and they enjoy their lives. The most important thing to most Mexicans is their quality of life, meaning, spending time with the family, going to the park, walking their dog, cooking a beautiful meal for themselves or their loved ones, reading a book, going to the movies, going to the park, going for a walk, taking a bike ride, going to a museum. I could go on and on. The reality is that out here in Mexico, many Mexicans, they emphasize, quality of life. They emphasize living their life. Sure, they work very hard. We all know Mexicans are some of the hardest working people on earth, but yet they are some of the happiest people on earth. They really embrace the whole idea of you got to live life and enjoy life. Sure, you got to work hard, but you got to play hard as well. And that's the whole idea that, a lot of people just love about living in Mexico. Once you're out here in Mexico, you're going to quickly realize how much freedom you actually have. Now, again, I totally understand. There's a lot of people out there that just don't like so much freedom. But for a lot of you guys that are listening out there and you're watching these videos, you want that freedom. You miss that freedom. In fact, some of you guys never even had that freedom ever. And by you not being stressed out constantly by so many things, believe it or not, that's part of that freedom. You are free to live your life. You're not constantly walking on eggshells all the time. You're free to do basically whatever it is you want to do. The main rule of thumb that you're going to have out here in Mexico is basically, as long as you're not hurting anybody, as long as you're not bothering anybody, well, you got nothing to worry about. And I don't mean, making a little bit too much noise or insulting somebody, by telling them the truth or something like that. No, none of those things are crimes out here in Mexico. You can start a small business. You can have a little side hustle. You can do so many things out here in Mexico that, well, again, you don't need all these, fees, licenses, rules and regulations, restrictions. You don't have to worry about any of these things. You can just, again, do what you got to do. As long as you're not, again, hurting anyone, literally hurting somebody out there, well, then you really have nothing to worry about. Eventually, once you want to grow that business and you want to do something a little more than just, sell something on Facebook or something out of the front of your house, well, then yeah, at that point you have to get a small little business license. You got to, of course, comply with, a few little rules or regulations, but nothing that's insane like what you were probably used to in your home country, where the barrier to entry seems almost impossible. And it's like they force you to work a miserable job, and that's the only option you have for income. Out here in Mexico, it's not like that at all. Sure, you can work a job, and sometimes you don't make any money, and sometimes you can make really good money. It all depends on the job and your skill set. But the reality is that most Mexicans, they only use jobs as like an entry point in order to make some money and just, get on their feet in order for them to really do what they want to do. Whatever that is. Again, it might be starting a small business. It might be to be an artist. It might be to, who knows what it is, okay? Everyone has different dreams and aspirations out there. But out here, you get to really follow your heart, follow your soul, and do what really makes you happy, and in turn makes other people happy. Something that, well, that used to be the American dream. That used to be something that was a constant thing back home in the USA, and it's just not a reality anymore. It just doesn't exist. But out here in Mexico, it's alive and well. Now, going back to, leaving the USA and moving to Mexico, I've made many videos on this whole situation before, and we know you know that the more you have in the USA, the more you have tying you down in the USA, the more difficult it is for you to move out here. The less you have, the easier the move. But of course, it goes without saying, each scenario has its negatives and its positives. So for me, my example, you guys already know my story, and if you don't, I'm going to give you a quick little overview. I came out here to Mexico with basically $1,500 US left to my name and just a couple bags, with some clothes, my computer, my camera. That's it. And I came out here and I made it happen. Sure, it was difficult. It was a struggle. It was an adventure. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I'll do it over again 100 times over. But the reality was that it was difficult because I didn't even have a job. I just had, a bunch of gigs, a bunch of hustles that I would do online, and I just had to scrape, money here and there from, all kinds of little odd jobs, that I would find online on Craigslist, whatever, and I would put all that together to make enough money to pay my bills. And, it was a lot easier for me because I was just a single guy. I only had to worry about myself. I did not have to worry about, having to make a large amount of money. I've been through, more difficult situations. And to me, it wasn't that big a deal. In order for me to have my freedom, I totally understood that I probably had to eat a lot of beans, a lot of eggs, a lot of, cheap hot dogs, whatever it was in order for me to make it happen. And sure, it was uncomfortable and it was not easy, but it was a lot of fun. And now, again, as I said, and I keep saying it over and over again, I would do it all over again as many times as it takes because, well, again, my life has been amazing. It has not been easy. It has been a struggle in many instances, but I have memories and experiences to last a lifetime. And so that's the whole idea. Again, if you're coming out here, you're going to be probably in the same kind of situation. Now, of course, there's many of you people out there that, well, you guys have, a pretty good situation in the USA. You probably just want to leave because you want a better life for your family, or you want, again, a better quality of life for you and your spouse or whatever it is. You probably have a few bucks in your pocket, but at the end of the day, it's again, the more you have, the more difficult it could be for you because you have more loose ends that you got to take care of before you come out here. Now, the less you have, well, the less you got to worry about that. All you got to do is just basically pack your bags and, get on a plane and get over here. Make sure you know some Spanish. Make sure you have survival skills. And, again, the rest, should be self-explanatory. But if you're coming out here, okay, and you're basically rerouting your whole family, your whole lifestyle, your whole everything, well then, yeah, it's going to be a lot more difficult. And again, the more tied you are to the USA, well, the more difficult and daunting and overwhelming you're going to see this whole experience and this whole move, not just to Mexico, but whatever country you choose to move to. But again, as the old saying goes, nothing good comes easy. So if you want to improve your life, if you want to improve the life of your loved ones around you, if you want to really be able to live and enjoy, the rest of the days that you have ahead of you, well, it's going to come with struggle. It's not going to be easy in one shape, form, or another. It doesn't matter how much you have or how little you have, you're going to have to put that work in. Again, whether it's learning a new language, whether it's, getting used to a brand new culture, whether it's, again, embracing a brand new, way of life, the food, the people, whatever it is. For some people, it's very easy. For me, it came very easy to move out here. As difficult as it was a lot easier for me because the main thing that I was looking for was freedom. And, well, guess what? Out here in Mexico, I definitely found that freedom. And that freedom, again, means something very different to many people. For me, it was, again, the freedom to live how I wanted to live. Also, the financial freedom. There's no financial burden out here for many people because, again, in the USA, you have to pay so much money for rent, so much money for food. You have other expenses like, again, you might have a car, you might have insurance for that car, you might have to get insurance for yourself, and it can go on and on with all these extra expenses that you're probably just not going to have out here in Mexico because, well, again, out here in Mexico, you really just don't need car insurance or a car or health insurance or, again, a multitude of all these other expenses that, well, you really do need in the USA. Out here in Mexico, you just need to cover your basics. And by doing so, well, that relieves a lot of stress and allows you to be more free, because it's not about, necessarily, being in a country in which the cost of living is less, even though, yes, it is. The cost of living out here in Mexico could be less than whatever it is you have in the USA. But it's not that. It's the option of whether or not, you want to live exactly like you lived in the USA or not. If you want to live like a typical Mexican, in which case you don't need to make that much money. But again, out here in Mexico, the expenses are just totally different. And again, if you, just practice, basic common sense, when it comes to your financial sovereignty, well, then you really don't have much to worry about, because again, let's say you again, knock on wood, you have an emergency, and that emergency means that you have to go to the doctor. Well, again, a doctor out here is only going to cost you like $3 US. Medicine is not going to be, inaccessible, let alone you're going to need, all these prescriptions, just to get, basic medicine, like, I don't know, antibiotics, or insulin for your diabetes, or whatever it is you have. Now, again, of course, you do need, certain prescriptions, and, there are, laws and rules and regulations when it comes to all that, but it's nothing like in the USA. I remember when I lived in the USA, I needed to take allergy medicine, and, I was restricted to only being able to get 30 allergy pills every single month. I used to take things like Claritin, Allegra, whatever, and again, I could only get 30 a month. So guess what? If a month had 31 days in it, well, I had to spend a day without getting my allergy medicine, which to me was insane, and it was crazy. How, I was restricted, on just getting my simple allergy medicine. Where out here, you can get allergy medicine, you can get whatever medicine you need, and if you do need a prescription, you can see a doctor for a few bucks, and, obviously, if it's something like, allergy medicines, or you need some, antibiotics, to cure something, or whatever it is you need, that's all within reason. Listen, they're not going to restrict it to you. In fact, they're going to help you out as best they can in order to make sure that you get healthy, which is another, big, kind of thing out here, where out in the USA, living a healthy lifestyle is very difficult. And what do I mean? Again, it's the doctor situation in this case. The fact that, most doctors out here are actual doctors. And so you don't have to worry about, them being captured by, someone or some entity or anything like that. No, they're just doctors, and they're here to do their job, and they're here to cure you and make you feel better. And that's it. They're not trying to sell you anything. They're not trying to, force you to do one thing or the other. No, they just, hey, these are the options. What do you want to do? This is what I recommend. This is what, I think is going to cure you. And if that doesn't work, well, you can go see another doctor. It's only going to cost you another $3. And even if you do need to see an actual, specialist, or you got to go to a hospital or whatever it is, none of these things are inaccessible. They're actually very accessible. Again, another example was that, Christian, just a few years ago, she broke her ankle. She broke the heel on her foot. And, she was painting a mural. She was, standing up high and, like over a pool. The pool was empty. She fell, landed on her heel, on her foot, and it cracked in half. And guess what? We were freaking out. Obviously, she was in pain. She was out of commission for 6 months, in a cast, all this stuff. And, it definitely, put a big dent in my wallet. Okay, basically it made us beyond broke. Okay, after working so hard to save a few bucks, well, all our money basically went into her health care. But did it really bankrupt me to the point where I couldn't function or go forward? No, of course not. It was just, hey, it is what it is. It happened. Thank God that it was just her foot, and it was fixed, and now she's totally fine and everything's great, and she got the best medical care possible. And again, all it did was just cost me a few thousand US dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, for the same situation back in the USA. And in my case, I had knee problems where I couldn't even see a doctor. I couldn't even afford to see a doctor back in the USA. Out here, well, I got to see multiple doctors, okay? Until eventually I found the right doctor for me that, well, he prescribed for me, for me to go do some physical therapy. I did not have to get surgery. I did not have to take all these meds. I did not have to do all these things that I didn't want to do, even though many doctors were, again, they were offering me all kinds of different solutions. But eventually, I came to a doctor, an older gentleman that used to, train boxers and stuff like that. A friend of mine recommended, me to him. And guess what? I went to that doctor. That doctor, had a conversation with me. He knew that I didn't want to have any surgery. He saw that my knees were messed up from so many years, working in a kitchen. And, he offered me, a few solutions. I simply said, look, I want an organic solution. I want a solution that I can try to fix this myself, or at least mitigate it as best as possible without again having to have some sort of surgery. And he said, no problem, we're going to give you some glucosamine. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do physical therapy wise, and well, guess what, I'm as good as new. Now I can go on and walk for 8 hours straight, no problems. I can ride my bicycle without any kind of pain or anything like that. As where before, sometimes if I did too much exercise, I was bedridden, but not anymore. And again, that's just the doctor. That's just the health. And when it comes to food, again, you're already been seeing this giant and amazing market that we've been walking around, and none of this food is altered in any way. Most of this food is as healthy as can be. They just do the bare minimum to grow it, and it's available for you to enjoy. And again, once you're out here, you quickly start to see how you start to lose weight, how you automatically, start feeling better. You're not bloated anymore. And again, it's just, you just start getting healthier. It's not just because you don't have as much stress. It's not just because, the food doesn't have all these chemicals in it. It's not just because, you have access to better healthcare, doctors, and so on and so forth. It's also, the fact that, you are probably getting a lot more exercise because you're living a healthier lifestyle like most Mexicans are living. A lot of Mexicans, of course they drive. You see cars everywhere out here, especially in a major city like Guadalajara, which you're going to be seeing more of, as, the weeks go on, and I get to show you even more footage of, our adventure out here in this part of Mexico. But the reality is that the typical Mexican, well, like I said, they go on walks, whether they're walking their dog or they're walking to the store, or, they're riding their bike, or, again, they are exhibiting a lot of physical fitness. They're going out there and they're doing everything possible to, again, work on their body, make sure that their body is as healthy as possible. Again, if you don't use it, you lose it. It's as simple as that. And when you go to parks out here, which by the way, there are parks everywhere. These parks have all kinds of equipment for you to work out at, and not just work out, in the parks. Again, you can do your own workouts. The point I'm making is that you don't have to go to a fancy gym and spend a lot of money in order to stay healthy. Okay, most people out here, they just stay healthy by working on their own body. They can do push-ups at home. Like I said, they can go for a walk, ride their bicycle, whatever it is. Okay, but they, again, keep a healthy lifestyle. And so, going back to what I was saying at the very beginning of this episode was the fact that, you need to stop complaining. You need to stop, making excuses and reasons as to, woe is me, life is terrible, life sucks, my life is miserable, and I'm never going to be able to get anything better out of my life. Look, the reality is that you got to put in that work, one way or another, and that's as simple as that. And so in this case, if you want to better your situation, well, you got to put in that work. And what does that work entail? Well, again, it's not going to be easy to move to another country. You might have to learn another language. You might have to struggle, by doing things that you never thought you would do, or again, you just feel like, well, they're too uncomfortable for me to do. Again, if you want to better your life and better your situation, you got to learn to embrace being uncomfortable. Okay? Because the more you embrace being uncomfortable, the better it's going to end up being for you. It's as simple as that. Because the reality is that the more comfortable you are, well, the more miserable you're probably going to be. Most of you people out there that are listening to this and you're very unhappy and miserable in your lives in the USA, believe it or not, you're actually a little bit too comfortable, because you might be working your miserable job, all right, that you hate very much, and then you come home and you eat your McDonald's and you're watching your Netflix and you're plopping on the couch and you're not really doing much to improve your life or your lifestyle. And of course, you're just gonna get, everything's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. So in order for you to, better that life, well, guess what? Instead of watching Netflix, maybe you should start learning Spanish. Instead of, eating McDonald's, well, perhaps start eating a little healthier, even if it's gonna cost you a few more bucks. Instead of taking the car, just to go to the grocery store that's a few blocks away, walk. And start, again, getting used to how life is going to be when you get to Mexico. That way, once you finally do make that move and you finally, earn enough money to, set yourself up correctly, because, well, that's another thing too that a lot of people just don't realize, is that you're going to have some sort of income, you're going to have some sort of savings, you're going to have something, you're going to have some money. Not everybody's going to be me. It's just going to be able to come out here with nothing and make it work. Remember, I knew the language. I've been through a lot of struggles. So for me, it was just, par for the course. But for a lot of you guys, it's going to be even more difficult, okay? And so, therefore, you got to be able to save a few bucks. You got to be able to start getting ready, mentally ready, physically ready. And again, you got to realize that it's not going to be easy, and that, you have to train yourself in a certain extent in order for you to really, get that prize that you're looking for. And what is that prize? Well, you probably want better quality of life, right? You want to, have that freedom that you've always wanted. You want to have access, to all this amazing food and all these amazing people and all these amazing experiences and all this amazing life. Again, it's not going to be easy, but you can do it. It's accessible to you. You better start figuring out a way for you to do this before you do have, something happen to you, your life, your lifestyle, whatever, in which you're not going to be able to do this anymore. You got to act now while you have the energy, the age, the ability, the money, or whatever it is. Again, remember, all of us are very different, and all of us have access to very different things out there. And these are the things that are going to allow us or not allow us, to do, something as crazy as move to another country. And again, depending on the individual out there, well, it's going to depend on where you move to when you come to Mexico. Because, there are some cities that are, extremely easy for a foreigner, an immigrant to move into and, again, get used to the culture, get used to the life. And there are other cities that are, hard mode. Some are hard, some are easy. It's as simple as that. And obviously the ones that are a lot easier for you to move into, the ones that are a lot easier for you, to be able to assimilate to, well, those are probably going to cost you a little bit more money. And the ones that are more difficult for you to assimilate to, the ones that are in hard mode, difficult mode, well, that's probably going to be, a lot more accessible financially for you, or just accessible in other ways. So it's like everyone has, something completely different that they have to kind of figure out on their own. And again, that's that work that you got to do internally. You got to do that work in order to really be able to embrace and take advantage of such an amazing opportunity like it is to come to Mexico and live the amazing life that most Mexicans live. And the reality is that once you're out here, you start to realize too that a lot of Mexicans realize what an amazing life they have, but some Mexicans, they still don't understand. They still think that living in Mexico is not, as peachy or as awesome as it is as living in the USA. I think a lot of Mexicans are starting to figure out that they actually have it really good out here, as they see more and more Americans coming now to Mexico and becoming, immigrants, just like they were immigrants at one point not too long ago. And so, as we've discussed, in other videos, Mexico has a really strong economy. And that strong economy is only getting stronger, and it's giving access to better things, and it's giving access to the typical Mexican to things that, well, they never had access to in the past. In fact, they had to go to a country like the USA, Canada, or even Europe in order to have access to a certain way of life or certain things, but not anymore. Now the typical Mexican, they work hard enough, well, they can achieve that Mexican dream, and they can all do it in the comfort of their own home with their family, and they don't have to move abroad to do this. Again, now it's the other way around. Now they're starting to really see, how many immigrants, are coming to Mexico. Not just from the USA and Canada and Europe, no, from all over the world. there's a lot of immigrants that are basically, coming to Mexico to achieve that Mexican dream. Remember, there's a lot of immigrants, coming into the U.S. right now, and, there's many different reasons as to why there's immigrants going to the USA and some are staying in Mexico. The reality is that the ones that, want to embrace the Mexican way of life, which is, again, a lot more freedom, a lot more sovereignty, a lot more ability to really be able to grow something and do something, they stay out here in Mexico. A lot of immigrants that are going into the USA these days, they're basically looking for a free handout. They have been fed a lie. Well, just like you guys have been fed a lie. And, some of these immigrants that are going into the USA, they have been fed a lie in which, the USA is still the land of milk and honey. And, once they're out there and they're trying to achieve this American dream that is no longer existed and available anymore, well, a lot of them, they get upset, they get bitter, and they end up, having to figure out a way to now start earning enough money again in order to now leave the USA for another country. And for some of them, they don't even know what else is available out there. But for the ones that, have done their research out there, well, they're realizing that, Mexico is where it's at. Mexico is where the opportunities are these days. And you're seeing immigrants that, are staying in Mexico, that are, again, from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Cuba, from all over Latin America, from all over Africa, from all over, again, India, Asia. There's a lot of Chinese people that are, moving out here, a lot of Asians, from other parts of, Asia, that are moving out here. It's not just Americans and Canadians and Europeans. And, again, just talking about, really briefly about, this whole gentrification situation that, some Mexicans are complaining about, or at least blaming on other immigrants. I literally saw something the other day in which now Mexicans, rich Mexicans, but, Mexicans of, of a higher income level, now they're starting to gentrify places like Spain or, places in Europe because, again, the tables are turning. We're living in a globalized world and, you can't make this stuff up. This is, hilarious. And we're going to be talking about that in, a future episode. So, I hope you guys are enjoying so far this conversation that we're having, the walk that we're having around this market. And if you do and are enjoying a lot of this stuff, then you already know what to do. Please, check out the rest of my channel and check out my website and so on and so forth, so you can watch even more, of these videos and hear me talk about more of these topics that, well, from what you guys are telling me, no one is talking about. And as I was saying earlier, none of this is going to be easy. But again, what you're living right now is not easy either. And so in order for you to make that change, you're going to have to put in that work. It's just like anything else. If you want to lose weight, well, it's not going to be easy. But once you do it, well, you're going to be so happy and glad that you did it. And you're not going to, ever look back. For me, in my case, I used to weigh like 280 pounds. Now I weigh like around 200 pounds and I'm still fat. All right. And obviously I need to, get in better shape. But the point I'm making is that in order for me to get to 280 pounds again, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like I have to literally let myself go to the extreme, something that I can't even fathom doing right now, because look, I still eat my Twinkies, I still drink my Coca-Cola, I still do things that I shouldn't be doing, but it's like almost impossible now, these days, no matter what I do, in order for me to balloon to that point. So eventually you're going to get to that same point as well, where, once you're out here in Mexico and you've been living out here in Mexico for a while, well, you are never ever going to be, in that position where, you are right now in the USA. Of course, things will happen. You know what I mean? It's not going to be 100%, rosy and peachy and all that stuff. But the point I'm making is that you're never going to be in that situation that you are right now in the USA. It's just not going to happen. By you embracing, becoming an immigrant and moving to another country, and taking all the necessary steps in order to better your life, better your lifestyle, better your quality of life, do all these things that, again, you have to do for yourself. Well, guess what? It's going to get to that point where there's just no turning back. You're going to get that fit body. You're going to have that amazing life, that amazing lifestyle that no one's going to ever be able to take away from you. And again, the one thing that you're going to be regretting, the one thing that you should be regretting is that you didn't do this sooner. Because if there is one regret I have, from me moving out here to Mexico, is the fact that I didn't do it sooner. I actually had the opportunity to move to Mexico even earlier than when I actually did. When I actually finally did make that move to Mexico, it was when my back was up against the wall and I didn't have any other choice. It was either move to Mexico and figure it out, or live on the street, live out of my car in Skid Row over there in LA. And to me, that was not an option. After everything that I had done in the USA, after all the money I made, after all the money I made for other people, after all the, my amazing career, my amazing life, all these things that I did with my life, and all of a sudden now, my choices were, move, in your car, to, somewhere, in a Walmart parking lot, and again, still work, you still had to work, to pay for your basic necessities, or even worse, if it got bad enough, I had to go and live on the street. And not because I was a drug addict or crazy or anything like that, even though, some people can argue that, but that's another story for another day. The point is that, that's it. That's the reality of what the U.S. is these days. You make one mistake, or again, sometimes you don't even make a mistake. Something happens to you that you might not even have any control over. And before you know it, you're in one of those situations. And so for me, I was like, no way, Jose. There's no way that I'm going to, end up on the street or end up living out of my car or struggling to that extent. That's it. I cashed out of the casino and I moved to Mexico, and it was the best decision I ever made. And the reality is that, again, the biggest regret I have is that I didn't do it sooner, because, well, if I would have done it a few years before I got to that point, I would have been able to move out to Mexico with, a few grand, like, 20 grand or something like that. And you know how much that money how far that would have taken me out here in Mexico, especially like 10 years ago? Very far. But guess what? 10 years ago, I didn't have the balls, to do this. I stayed home because I was scared, of all the propaganda. I was scared of, everything that I heard of, about life in Mexico, what it really is out there. I was told all these things that, well, are not true, as you guys can see in, my videos, and I'm sure the videos of other YouTubers these days. But I also believed, the fact that, well, I was in the land of opportunity where, things were just the best. So if things were bad in the USA, well, they're like 10 times worse in other parts of the world. And guess what? I could not have been more wrong about that. But again, it didn't matter. I learned the hard way. I eventually made the move, and I moved out here with basically nothing. And again, if I moved out here with basically nothing, and I was able to survive and thrive, as you guys are seeing already, by watching my videos, the longer you've been watching my channel, the more you've seen, how I've grown and how I've been able to succeed out here by just working really hard. Well, guess what? Like, you're going to be able to do it as well. And you're probably going to have a lot more resources than what I came out here with. And well, again, it's up to you whether you're going to be able to do this or not, whether you want it bad enough or not. So with all that being said, guys, I think it's time for me to wrap it up. I want to give a big shout out to all of my patrons out there, all of my members, every single one of you guys that help support the show in one shape, form, or another. Whether you're sending me $5 or $1, or you're not sending me anything at all, but you're leaving a like, you're sharing the video, whether you share it with a friend that might need to hear these things, or you're sharing it with an enemy because, well, whatever. Anyways, but the point is that whatever way that you help out, whether you're leaving a comment down below, and you're helping other people out by sharing your own experience with everyone else out there. Again, I really want to thank all of you guys that are, again, helping me out and helping everyone else out there in the audience that is looking for a solution and a way out of, their horrible situation wherever they're at. So again, thank you to you guys out there. You know exactly who you are, and I really, really appreciate you more than you could ever imagine. You're not just helping me, you're helping the community, and you're helping so many countless other people out there because, well, guess what? The longer I get to keep this going, well, the more I get to help out other people. So we're all in this together, like for reals, and we're really all, helping each other here, and we're trying to build a community, a positive community, a community of people that really want to, be immigrants in Mexico and really embrace that lifestyle, because, well, it's awesome. The best thing that ever happened to me was my situation that forced me to move to Mexico, and now I couldn't be any happier if I tried. I'm as happy as a little clam, as they say. So with that being said, guys, you already know the deal. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit that bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.